The millionaire asked the waitress why she was late. She said, "Sir, the bus didn't come, so I walked 42 kilometers. Hey, folks, where are you watching from? A single mother walking 42 kilometers through Michigan snow to keep her job. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But what if that journey wasn't just about survival? What if it was the spark that changed an entire town? Don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe. That's how we grow together. What do you think about walking through fire just to keep going? Drop a comment below. This is the story of Maria Delgado, a waitress in Flint and a millionaire who found family. Ready for a journey of struggle, resilience, and unexpected connections? Flint, Michigan, once the pulsing heartbeat of the auto industry. Now a faded shadow, groaning in the cold wind. The factories, once blazing with steel and dreams, have shuttered, leaving rusted skeletons creaking in their wake. Sidewalks crack like unhealed wounds. The water crisis has carved scars into the souls of its people, scars that refuse to fade. Maria Delgado, 34, lives on the razor-thin edge of survival. Each day she walks through a silent battle, where hope and despair intertwine like fragile threads. Her crumbling apartment on Flint's outskirts is a bitter reminder of lack. Peeling paint on walls, rusted pipes squeaking mockingly, taunting her longing for a true home. But in Maria's heart, a fire still burns. She lives for her two children. They are the light, guiding her through the darkest days. Each morning, Maria ties her brown hair neatly. Her calloused hands smooth the coffee and grease-stained waitress apron, a symbol of her resilience. Her brown eyes, dulled by sleepless nights, still spark with defiance, daring fate itself to break her. Sophia, her 9-year-old daughter, is her lighthouse. Sophia's drawings of stethoscopes, taped to the walls, scribbled yet radiant with hope, are Maria's sworn promise, a future where her girl becomes a nurse, free from poverty's shadow. Diego, her 6-year-old son, is her second breath. His asthma attacks make Maria clutch his inhaler like a talisman. Her heart tightens each time he wheezes, his eyes glinting with fear mixed with absolute trust in her. On long nights when Diego's coughs echo through the cold apartment, Maria sits by his bed, whispering tales of brave elephants, just to soothe the fear in both their hearts. She works at Daisy's Diner, a weathered oasis in Flint's heart. The small diner, with its scent of burnt toast and clinking plates, carries the breath of days when the town was alive. Now it's just a mournful tune of broken dreams. Maria glides between tables, a forced smile hiding aching feet and a heavy heart. Each shift is a battle, not just for meager tips, but to keep Sophia and Diego's world from collapsing. Under her bed, a shoebox brims with bills, silent threats, rent, electricity, Diego's medicine. The fridge in her kitchen, more empty than full, testifies to nights Maria goes hungry so her kids can eat. Each time she opens it, a sharp pain grips her chest, but she grits her teeth, turns away, and carries on. Flint's bus system, fickle as an empty promise, turns Maria's commute into a gamble. She waits in the pre-dawn darkness, her breath fogging in the bone-chilling cold, only to see no bus lights appear. In those moments, fear of losing her job surges, clawing at her mind. Losing Daisy's Diner means losing everything. The roof over their heads, food, her children's dreams. But Maria refuses to let fear win. She tightens her scarf, takes a deep breath, and walks on, as she has for 34 years. Each step is a declaration of war against Flint, against its scars and its cruelty. In Maria's heart, an endless inner battlefield rages. There are moments, wiping tables under Daisy's dim lights, when she wonders if she's fighting a losing war. Fear of failure weighs heavy, whispering she'll never be enough money, enough strength, enough time. But then, Sophia's radiant smile as she finishes a drawing, or Diego's tight hug after an asthma attack, pulls her back. She doesn't just survive. She lives so her children can dream. That fire, smoldering through long nights and brutal days, propelled her into a 42-kilometer trek through snow, where fate would lead her to Julian Harper, a stranger with a secret that could change everything. In a dying Flint, Maria Delgado is a heartbeat that refuses to stop, a light that refuses to be extinguished. Below is the translated segment from Vietnamese to American English, crafted for voiceover readiness with semicolons added to heighten emotional impact for listeners. The translation preserves every detail of the original content, without adding or omitting anything, as per your requirements, and is ready for recording. On January 12, 2025, the cold in Flint was a predatory beast, lurking in the darkness. The temperature plunged to 12 degrees. Winds howled through desolate streets like a razor's edge, slicing into flesh. Maria Delgado stood alone at the bus stop at 4:15 a.m. Her breath turned to frost, dissolving into the icy night. Her old coat, bought from a thrift store, torn at the shoulder, offered no shield against the biting wind. She had left Sophia and Diego with Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor with kind eyes but hands trembling, weakened by arthritis. In Maria's heart, a gnawing worry churned. Would Mrs. Jenkins be strong enough to care for the kids if they woke? But she had no choice. The 5 a.m. bus to Daisy's diner, where her shift began at 6, was the fragile thread tying her to survival. When no bus lights appeared, Maria's heart sank, heavy as stone. The cheap phone in her pocket, its battery dead from the cold, lay silent like a lifeless thing. Calling Carl, the gruff boss with a temper like a flare in the kitchen, wasn't an option. Losing her job meant losing everything. The crumbling roof over their heads, their meager meals, Sophia's dreams, Diego's breaths. Rent was due in 4 days. Diego's inhaler was nearly empty, each puff a countdown to fear. Her sneakers, patched with duct tape, squelched under thick snow. Maria tightened her scarf, zipped her coat higher, took a deep breath, and began to walk. The 42-kilometer trek through icy roads and snowdrifts was a brutal test, as if Flint were punishing her for daring to hope. With each step, her toes numbed, her lungs ached, like breathing shattered glass. But Maria didn't stop. She couldn't stop. In her mind, images of Sophia and Diego were the fire keeping her warm. She thought of Sophia, sitting under a flashlight during power outages, carefully spelling words, her eyes blazing with resolve to become a nurse. She thought of Diego, clutching his toy fire truck, his wheezy breaths but innocent smile intact, as if he believed his mother could fix the world. Each step was a prayer, for Sophia's dreams, for Diego's breaths, for a tomorrow without hunger. Pain seared through her body, from blistered feet to trembling hands, but a greater fear, of her children waking to a world without her, kept her upright. She clenched her teeth, pressed on, her shoes soaked with snow, blood seeping from blisters, staining her socks red. Flint, with its frozen roads and merciless cold, couldn't break her. Not today. At 9:50 a.m., nearly 5 hours later, Maria stumbled through the door of Daisy's diner, her face raw from wind, her breath ragged like someone who'd escaped hell. Her legs trembled, blood soaked her socks, but she stood tall, chin high like an unbroken warrior. Carl, the boss, stood waiting, arms crossed, his eyes cold as gravel. "Delgado, you're late," he growled. "What's the excuse?" Maria, her breath halting, replied, her voice hoarse but steady. "Sir, the bus didn't come, so I walked 42 kilometers." The diner fell silent. Truck drivers stopped chewing. Bites of toast hung mid-air. Old men looked up from crosswords, their eyes wide. The cook froze, his ladle stilled. The air thickened, as if all of Flint held its breath before this small woman's will. Carl glared, his gaze softening for a rare moment, a fleeting glimpse of understanding. Maria tied her apron, her hands shaking, and began her shift, a forced smile hiding the pain screaming through her body. In the corner of the diner, a man, Julian Harper, a millionaire with a wounded past, witnessed it all. Maria's 42-kilometer journey, though she didn't know it, planted a seed in his heart, a spark that would lead her to a secret capable of changing everything. In Flint's cruel cold, Maria Delgado didn't just walk. She waged war on fate, and her story was only beginning. In the quiet corner of Daisy's diner, where the weary faces of farmers in faded jeans and truckers in flannel jackets blended with the clink of plates, Julian Harper sat silently, a shadow out of place in a world not his own. At 46, he was the millionaire behind Harper Solutions, a software empire propping up millions of small businesses. His tailored gray suit hugged his frame. His polished leather shoes reflected the hazy silhouettes of those around him. But they were mere armor, concealing a heart scarred by loss. Julian's blue eyes, deep and somber, carried an unspoken sorrow, as if he clutched a past he couldn't release. He'd come to Flint to review a data center project, a plan that could either revive the dying town or deepen its wounds. But Daisy's, with its burnt coffee smell and the murmurs of regulars, was where he sought a moment of peace, a place for his mind to breathe amid stifling boardrooms and weighty decisions. In Julian's heart, a void never closed. 20 years ago, a car accident stole Clara, his sister, a single mother with a radiant smile and a resilient spirit. Clara was the fire warming their family, the one who taught Julian to rise after every fall. When she was gone, a part of him died too. Wealth, awards, million-dollar deals, all meaningless against the emptiness Clara left behind. He'd built his empire on the foundation of pain, each step forward an attempt to fill the void, but nothing could replace her laughter or the warmth of a family's embrace. Julian lived in a world of numbers and strategies, but his heart yearned for something unnameable, a tie to the past, a reason to believe he wasn't forever alone. Each day he wore the mask of a confident millionaire, but inside, he was a man haunted by what-ifs. What if he could have saved Clara? What if he hadn't lost what mattered most? When Maria Delgado staggered into Daisy's, her legs faltering and her face raw after a 42-kilometer trek, Julian felt a jolt run through him. She tied her apron with trembling hands. A forced smile masked her exhaustion, but her eyes, a defiant spark, touched a deep corner of his soul. Julian couldn't look away. Maria poured coffee for regulars, her hands steady despite a body clearly screaming in pain. She bantered with a trucker, her voice gentle but her eyes etched with wounds, as if she carried the world on her shoulders yet refused to fall. In that moment, Julian saw Clara's shadow, the stubborn resilience, the fire that wouldn't die no matter how life tried to snuff it. His heart beat faster. A strange feeling stirred, an inexplicable connection, a glimmer of hope that he might reclaim something lost. But with hope came fear that this was just an illusion, that he was weaving dreams that weren't real. Julian's inner world churned, a silent storm. He wondered if Maria was the sign he'd long sought, or merely a passing stranger, another sad story in this town of tragedies. He wanted to know, to understand, but he feared the answer. As Maria passed his table, carrying a tray of cold coffee, Julian took a deep breath, summoning the courage to breach the invisible wall between them. "Miss, why were you late today?" His voice soft, almost a whisper, but laced with genuine curiosity. Maria paused, her eyes flickering with caution, as if bracing for judgment from a wealthy stranger. "Sir, the bus didn't come, so I walked 42 kilometers, she replied, her voice hoarse but resolute, a declaration of war against fate. Julian froze. His heart tightened. A mix of awe and admiration surged within him. He said nothing more, but Maria's response planted a seed in his heart, a spark that could lead to a secret, a truth that would change everything. In the stifling air of daisies, amid strangers and silent pains, Julian Harper felt an invisible thread begin to form, tying him to the small woman who'd walked through hell to get here. Dear audience, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water, then keep listening to this story. The twists are still ahead. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone joining us from all corners of the world. Comment 1 if you're loving this story. It'll inspire us to bring you even more amazing tales. Victor Malone was not just a name. He was the stifling shadow over Flint. An invisible monster choking the town with bottomless greed. Owner of vast properties, from the crumbling Daisy's Diner to the dilapidated apartment complex where Maria Delgado held her children each night. Malone was the embodiment of cruelty. He bought factories, shuttered them, stole jobs from thousands, leaving shattered families and crushed dreams. His ruthless lease agreements pushed people onto the streets, turned Flint into a graveyard of hope. In Maria's heart, when the truth about her mother, Clara Delgado, emerged, a fire of justice blazed, fierce and unquenchable. Clara didn't die in a random accident. She was stolen by Malone's recklessness, a drunk behind the wheel. His wealth buried all evidence. Maria clutched her mother's photo, her fingers trembling, her heart torn between pain and rage. She didn't just lose her mother. She lost her childhood, years that should have been safe in a family's embrace. But Maria refused to let that pain drag her down. She stood tall, her eyes burning, determined to turn her grief into strength. Julian Harper, Maria's uncle, carried a similar fire, though it smoldered beneath a millionaire's cold exterior. The truth about Clara's death, his sister, was a knife twisting in a wound that never healed. For 2 decades, he lived with guilt for failing to save Clara. Now the truth about Malone turned that pain into fury. Julian didn't hesitate. He hired top lawyers. They dug through police reports, unearthed witness testimonies, and found a retired officer ready to break his silence, driven by a guilty conscience. In his heart, a cold resolve took shape, not just to seek justice for Clara, but to protect Maria, the niece he'd just found, and the people of Flint crushed by Malone. Julian looked at Maria, saw Clara's shadow in her, unyielding resilience, a fire that wouldn't die, and knew they were an unlikely alliance. Her strength fused with his resources. Maria, her heart scarred by years of struggle, understood Flint more deeply than anyone. She knew its cracked streets, its freezing apartments, the dreams choked under Malone's boot. She began a mission to rally the community, her steps steady despite a heart heavy with fear. She stood in noisy bars, stuffy church basements, and run-down community centers, sharing her story. Her voice was rough, sometimes choking, but never wavered. She spoke of her mother's death, her 42-kilometer trek through snow to keep her job, the night she went hungry so Sophia and Diego could eat. "Malone didn't just take my mother," she said before a crowd at the workers' hall, her hands clenched as if gripping the past. "He took your jobs, your homes, your hopes. It's time we take them back." Her words were a spark, igniting the hearts of Flint's people, families evicted, workers jobless, dreams buried. They listened, their eyes gradually brightening. A collective fire began to burn. Malone didn't stand still. He struck back, ruthless and cold. He threatened to raise Daisy's rent if Carl didn't fire Maria, his voice over the phone sharp as a blade. Anonymous letters slid under Maria's apartment door, their scrawled words dripping with menace. One night, a brick shattered her window. Glass fell inches from Diego's bed with a note: "Stop, or lose everything." Maria's heart clenched, fear like a knife at her throat. She knelt by the bed, holding a sleeping Sophia and Diego, silent tears falling. But the next morning, she patched the window with cardboard, kissed her children's foreheads, and kept fighting. Fear couldn't overpower her love for Sophia and Diego, couldn't extinguish the fire of justice within her. In Julian's heart, Maria's courage was a reminder. This fight wasn't just theirs, it was Flint's. At Daisy's, where coffee cups cooled and life's stories echoed, Maria and Julian had planted the seeds of a revolution, a fire poised to blaze brightly. The Flint Town Hall was packed, the air heavy, like a silent threat. Victor Malone sat in the front row, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the worn jeans of the townsfolk. Maria Delgado stepped to the podium, her hands trembling, but her eyes blazed with unyielding fire. In her heart, a storm of emotions swirled: grief for her lost mother, years of struggle, and fierce love for Sophia and Diego. She held up Clara's photo, her mother's smile a guiding flame. "This is my mother," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the murmurs. "Victor Malone killed her, drunk behind the wheel. His money buried the truth. He stole my childhood, my family, and your hope." She spoke of her 42-kilometer trek through snow, her blistered feet to keep her job, the nights she went hungry so her children could eat. Each word was a spark, igniting the hearts of listeners, awakening a Flint drowned in pain. Maria didn't just speak for herself. She spoke for families evicted by Malone, for dreams he crushed. Julian Harper, standing in the back, felt his heart tighten. Maria, the niece he'd just found, was Clara's living echo, the sister he couldn't save. 2 decades of regret now hardened into cold resolve. He'd poured resources into exposing Malone, and now his lawyer stepped forward, voice sharp, presenting evidence. Traffic camera footage showing Malone's swerving car, bribed witness testimonies, a confession from an officer paid to lose the report. The crowd erupted, Shouts of Maria's name rang like a war cry. Malone, his face pale, eyes panicked, was escorted out by the sheriff, his empire crumbling in disgrace. Julian looked at Maria, pride and pain surging within. He saw Clara's fire in her, a flame now lighting all of Flint. Outside the hall, reporters swarmed. Flint's story spread across national news. Maria stood there, a weight lifting from her shoulders. She'd fought for Clara, for Sophia, Diego, and the town. Flint began to heal. The Clara Delgado Community Center opened, offering job training, free child care, reliable buses, things Maria once dreamed of. She took a project manager role at Harper Solutions, studying business at night, her heart ablaze with a vision to make Flint a place where no one walks 42 kilometers to survive. Each plan she drafted was a promise for her children's future. Julian left his lavish Chicago penthouse, moving to a home near Maria. He became Uncle Julian to Sophia and Diego, teaching them coding, reading bedtime stories, helping Sophia build a robot for the science fair. In him, a void was filled, not with wealth, but with the laughter of 2 children and Maria's resilience. Maria still worked weekends at Daisy's, pouring coffee with steady hands, though they bore the scars of her past. Regulars now called her by name, tipped with pride, as if she were the soul of a new Flint. Flint transformed. Shops reopened, families returned. A factory restarted under fair management. Maria, once a single mother fighting alone, now led the way. Her 42-kilometer journey wasn't just a walk. It was the spark of a revolution. In her heart, pain lingered, but now it blended with hope. At Daisy's, amid cold coffee cups and life's stories, Maria and Julian rewrote Flint's fate, one step, one heartbeat at a time. Their journey didn't just save a town. It saved hearts once thought broken. 3 years later, on a crisp winter morning, Maria stood at the old bus stop, now a modern shuttle hub for the Clara Delgado Center. A warm bus pulled up, the driver waving as she boarded, not as a desperate mother, but as Flint's leader, heading to Lansing to advocate for affordable housing and public transit. Sophia, now 12, thrived at a STEM camp, her nursing dream within reach. Diego, 9, healthy, gazed at stars through a telescope with Uncle Julian. At Daisy's, Julian sipped coffee, reading a paper headlined, "Flint Reborn, One Woman's Fight." Maria sat across, her smile radiant. "We did it," she said, her hand touching his. "For family, for Flint." Outside, Flint buzzed. Children played in parks. Laughter echoed on streets. Maria's 42-kilometer walk had kindled a fire warming a town, a future. She was no longer alone, and neither was Flint. Thank you for joining us. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is. Drop a 1 if you love this story. It'll inspire us to bring you even more incredible tales.